You ain't my type. That's what she said. Right after dessert. Right after looking me in the eyes like she didn't just demolish my entire sense of reality with 5 words. Right after I paid the bill for the $148 dinner she insisted on having at a rooftop restaurant I had to reserve 2 weeks in advance. She said it like she was reading a menu. Like it was casual. Like it wasn't something that would haunt me for months. And when I laughed, because what else do you do when your wife of 4 years drops that on you between creme brulee and small talk? She added, I don't mean that in a bad way. You're just predictable. Safe. I feel like I'm sleepwalking when I'm with you. Let me tell you something. I don't remember how I got from that table to my car. I don't remember driving home. All I know is I woke up the next morning on the floor of my office with 1 shoe on and 3 missed calls from her. Calls I didn't return. Because what do you even say to that? You spend years building something. You think you're solid. You think you know the person lying next to you every night. And then one random Tuesday, they drop a grenade in your lap and tell you they're bored. But here's the part that kept scratching at the back of my skull. The thing that didn't make sense, even through the shock. If she was so unhappy, why was her phone blowing up with messages from someone named C? Why did she smile when she got a text while I was in the bathroom during dinner? Why did she suddenly start using a lock screen password 3 months ago? So I did what any emotionally wrecked, suspicious husband would do. I went digging. And what I found that night didn't just end my marriage. It changed everything I thought I knew about the people closest to me, including my own brother. I didn't sleep that night. Not in the normal sense. I think my body shut down out of pure emotional exhaustion around 4 a.m. And even then, my mind was still spinning in the dark. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face across the table, leaning in like she was delivering the weather report, not nuking our marriage. You ain't my type. For years together, and that's what it boiled down to. Not, I love you, but I'm lost. Not, I need space. Just that I wasn't her flavor. But that's not what broke me. What broke me was the lock screen. 3 months ago, she changed her phone habits. New password. Started taking it into the bathroom. It never buzzed near me anymore. Always flipped face down. I wasn't a jealous husband. Never had been. But when you suddenly realize your entire relationship has a crack running through it, you go back and examine everything. Every red flag you ignored. Every gut feeling you dismissed as paranoia. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I wanted truth first. Not guesses, not suspicions, cold facts. So I did something I thought I'd never do. I borrowed her laptop. It was still signed into her iCloud. I opened the Messages app. I didn't even have to scroll far. There it was, a whole thread with someone named just one letter C. At first, it looked friendly. Surface level. A few jokes. A couple memes. Then, as I scrolled up, it turned into something else. Inside jokes I'd never heard before. Screenshots of my texts to her, followed by replies like, he's still trying so hard, LOL. And then I saw one photo. Not explicit, but enough to freeze my bloodstream. She was sitting on someone's lap, a man's lap, in our guest room. The one I set up for her mom when she visited last Christmas. She was wearing my hoodie. The guy was cropped out, clever, but not clever enough. Because I recognized the chair, and I recognized the bracelet on the arm holding her waist. It was a braided leather band with a brass tag. A gift I gave my older brother, Clay, when he moved back to town last year. My stomach flipped. My brain started screaming at me to stop, to shut the laptop, go outside, breathe, but I couldn't. I scrolled further. Weeks of messages. Late-night plans. Lies layered on lies. They were seeing each other. In my house. While I was at work. While I was sleeping upstairs. She called it their little secret escape. I nearly threw up right there on the couch. I wasn't just betrayed. I was humiliated. I had welcomed Clay back into my life, into my home, even helped him get a job at my company. He was family, blood, and he was the one she chose, while looking me in the eye every morning like nothing was wrong. And you know the craziest part? They weren't even trying that hard to hide it. Not really. Because deep down, I think they wanted to be caught. They wanted to destroy me cleanly, together, like partners in some sick project. But if they thought I'd go quietly, if they thought I'd just disappear and leave them to play house in the ruins of my life, they had another thing coming. Because that night, I didn't cry. I planned. I didn't get angry right away. That would have been too easy. I didn't break anything. Didn't scream. Didn't even confront either of them. That night, I sat in the dark and opened the Notes app on my phone like some unhinged librarian building a catalog of pain. I started a list. I called it, What They Took. It sounds pathetic now, I know. But when your entire world tilts and no one else seems to notice, you have to anchor yourself to something. And for me, it was that list. The first few items were obvious. My marriage, my trust, my home. Then it got more specific. My hoodie, the chair in the guest room, the garlic press she swore we never needed but bought anyway. Now I know why. Item number 12 was the worst. My brother. I sat there staring at that line for so long the screen dimmed. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about him. Clay. The guy who used to sneak me extra fries when I was a kid. The guy who helped me through my panic attacks in college. The guy I once told, if anything ever happens to me, take care of her. He did. Just not in the way I meant. I didn't want to explode. I wanted precision. I wanted to dismantle them the way they dismantled me, slowly, with a smile. So the first thing I did was not tell anyone. That was critical. No big announcements. No hints. I acted normal. Maybe too normal. I kissed Tessa on the forehead the next morning. I brought her coffee. I asked her how she slept. She said, better than usual. And I had to bite the inside of my cheek so hard it bled. Then I went to work. And that's where the pieces started falling into place. See, I work in a quiet corner of the company, warehouse logistics. I manage inventory systems, oversee supply chain coordination, and yes, I have access to internal cameras. Not because I'm some big boss, but because no one else wants to deal with the outdated system. Clay worked under me. I had signed his employee badge request. I knew exactly when he came in, when he left, and what break rooms he lingered in too long. So I pulled the security logs. I cross-checked his entries against Tessa's errands and spa days. And surprise, surprise, there were overlapping windows where Clay mysteriously left early and Tessa forgot to respond to texts. You know what's really wild? One of the timestamps on a video showed Clay leaving the office with a tote bag that looked suspiciously like the one I bought for Tessa last Christmas. The man was walking around with pieces of her like trophies. And here's where it got surreal. Later that afternoon, Clay came into my office. Said he wanted to talk. No guilt in his eyes. No hesitation. He leaned against the door frame like he owned the place and said, I think I'm ready to apply for a team lead position. Said it with a smile. Like he deserved it. I nodded. Told him I'd think about it. Told him to send me his resume again. I didn't even blink. But in my head, I added item number 19, my patience. That night, I moved into the guest room. Told Tessa I was having back pain and wanted to try the firmer mattress. She bought it. She even offered to make me tea before bed. I accepted. She hummed while she boiled the water. I stared at the wall and thought about all the tiny decisions I'd made in the past few years that led me here. Every time I ignored my instincts. Every time I forgave without thinking. Every time I mistook her silence for peace. Then, around midnight, I got out of bed, opened my laptop, and started writing out my plan. Not for revenge. Not yet. That would come later. This was something else entirely. I was going to become a ghost in my own life. Invisible, quiet, unnoticed. Until the moment I wasn't. Until the moment I burned it all down. The days that followed were slow torture. Not the kind that comes with yelling or slamming doors. No, that would have been too easy for them. This was the quiet, invisible kind. I started watching them. Closely. Silently. The way you watch animals when you're hunting, learning their habits, their weak spots, the little routines they don't realize are giving them away. Tessa started sleeping later. I used to be the snoozer, but now she lingered in bed while past her alarm, scrolling, texting, giggling silently to herself in that disgusting little, I'm not supposed to be happy kind of way. I started cooking breakfast again, eggs, toast, sometimes pancakes. She always used to beg me to cook. Now I did it without asking, and I made sure to put her plate down in front of her with just the right amount of warmth and care. I could feel the confusion growing in her. I wasn't acting like a man who had been told he wasn't her type. I was acting like a man madly in love. The guilt in her eyes was subtle, but it was there. And guilt is a powerful thing. It doesn't just eat people. It makes them make mistakes. I started journaling every move they made. No one saw it. Just a private document on a flash drive hidden in the lining of my gym bag. I tracked her lies, his absences, their inconsistencies. Not because I needed to build a case. No court was coming. I just needed to understand the pattern before I disrupted it. I wasn't going to confront them in a dramatic explosion. I was going to twist the knife so slowly, neither of them would notice they were bleeding until they were already drowning in it. Then came the first real opportunity. A friend of mine, Marco, quiet guy, IT specialist, introvert. He owed me a favor from way back. I asked him for something simple. Help me mirror Tessa's phone without her knowing. I won't share the method, but let's just say I had access to her messages, calls, and location within 48 hours. That's when things shifted from theory to reality. I saw texts in real time. I read things that made my skin crawl. She told Clay she liked the way he smelled after the gym. Said my dad cologne made her feel like she was suffocating. They joked about how I still used pet names. Called me Golden Retriever Dale. I watched her tell him she felt alive when she was with him. Alive. While I sat 10 feet away from her on the couch, watching her pretend to be tired, watching her send goodnight red heart texts to another man. The pain burned less now. Not because I was healing, because I was hollowing out. Something inside me had already died, and I was just walking around in the leftover shell of who I used to be. And when you're that empty, revenge stops feeling like a choice. It becomes instinct. So I began phase 1. I started planting seeds. Casual ones. Quiet ones. I told Clay during lunch that I was thinking about transferring to a different branch. Said Tessa and I needed a change of scenery. I watched his face tighten. He smiled too fast. Asked too many questions. I answered all of them with a fake optimism that even I believed by the end of the conversation. That night, I told Tessa I wanted to renew our vows for our anniversary. She dropped her phone. I bent down and picked it up for her. Smiled. Told her, "You've been everything to me." Her eyes welled up. Not out of love. Out of panic. I had become the trap. She didn't know what I knew. And that gave me complete control. But the moment that told me this was working, the moment I'll never forget, was the night she stood in the kitchen, holding a wine glass, and asked me out of nowhere, "Are you happy?" I said, "Of course. Why wouldn't I be?" And she just nodded. But her hand was shaking. She knew. Somewhere deep down, she knew the mask I was wearing wasn't just for show. It was a countdown. You can only play the long game for so long before someone flinches. And this time, it wasn't me. It started on a Sunday afternoon. The weather was cold but bright. One of those October days where the sun is lying to you. I had just finished washing the car, not because it needed it, but because I wanted to watch her through the window. Tessa had been acting off. Like she knew something was closing in, but didn't know from where. She kept checking her phone more often, but texting less. Her routine had changed again. No more early morning jogs. No more trips to yoga. She was nesting, getting careful. And Clay? Clay had started avoiding me altogether. At work, he kept his head down, barely made eye contact, and his usual smug energy had turned into something twitchy, something hunted. It was working. That Sunday, Tessa came outside and asked if I wanted to go for a drive. Just the two of us. Clear our heads, she said. I didn't trust her, not even slightly, but I said yes. Because I wanted to see where it would go. She took the wheel, driving us out past the edge of town, into those winding roads where trees bend over the asphalt like they're whispering. No music, just the hum of the engine and the occasional question she'd toss into the silence like bait. Do you still trust me? Do you think people can change? What would you do if something happened to me? Each one was loaded. Each one dug under my skin and begged to be answered truthfully. But I didn't give her the satisfaction. I kept my voice steady. Told her I trusted her with my life. Told her people could change if they really wanted to. Told her that if something ever happened to her, I'd never recover. All technically true. We stopped at a scenic overlook. One of those places people take engagement photos and drink cheap wine on folding chairs. There were no other cars. Just us, the wind, and an atmosphere so thick with tension I could taste it. That's when she turned to me and said, "I think we need to start over. Wipe the slate clean." She reached for my hand. I let her hold it. I looked her in the eye and said, "I already did." Something flickered in her expression. Panic? Relief? Guilt? I couldn't tell. But she turned back to the wheel, started the car again, and we drove home in silence. I thought that was it, just another mind game. But that night, something happened I didn't plan for. Clay ended up in the ER. I found out through our mutual friend, Ben, who texted me late, saying Clay had fallen down a flight of stairs at his apartment. Said he'd broken his wrist, bruised a few ribs, and had a nasty concussion. Ben assumed I already knew. I didn't. But I didn't let that show. I played dumb. Thanked him. Wished Clay a speedy recovery. Then I checked the timestamp. Clay's accident happened exactly 20 minutes after we got home from our drive. 20 minutes after Tessa sat alone in her car for a while before coming into the house. She said she was making a phone call. I didn't need to ask who she called. She had gone there. And something had gone wrong. I tried not to let my mind go too far, but it did anyway. Did they argue? Did he say the wrong thing? Did she snap? Did he fall? Or was he pushed? The idea should have scared me. Instead, I felt nothing. Not fear. Not guilt. Not concern. Just confirmation. She was cracking. Everything I had been doing, the gaslighting, the sweetness, the unpredictability, it was working. I had become the ghost she couldn't outrun, the version of me that smiled with dead eyes and said things that sounded loving but landed like threats. And now someone was hurt. But not me. Not yet. The night Clay ended up in the hospital, Tessa barely spoke to me. She sat on the edge of the bed, hands trembling around a glass of water she never drank, her eyes glued to some spot on the wall behind me. I asked her if she was okay. She nodded, said she was just tired. Her voice was thin, brittle, like she was speaking through static. I didn't push. I just said goodnight, rolled over, and waited until she thought I was asleep. Then I watched her. She sat there for another 20 minutes before finally reaching for her phone. The glow lit up her face, pale and ghost-like. Her lips moved silently. I couldn't see the screen, but I knew exactly who she was texting. The woman who once swore she could never lie to me was now sitting 2 feet away, whispering apologies to my brother in a hospital bed. My chest should have been full of rage, but instead, I felt this strange, cold amusement. Like I was watching a movie I'd already seen, just waiting for the final scene to play out. When she finally fell asleep, I slipped out of bed, opened her purse, and took her phone. I didn't go through messages this time. I went straight for the voice memos. She had a habit of recording little notes for herself, reminders, shopping lists, even thoughts when she couldn't sleep. But what I found made my blood run cold. The most recent file was labeled for him. I pressed play. It was her voice, shaky and tearful. Clay, I don't know what's happening anymore. He's acting strange. It's like he knows. He looks at me like he's waiting for me to confess. I can't sleep. I can't think. I feel like there's something in the house watching me, even when he's gone. I think the recording cut off. That was it. No ending. No explanation. Just silence. But the way she said he's acting strange, the fear in her voice, it told me everything I needed to know. She was breaking apart. The guilt had twisted into paranoia, and she didn't know how to carry it anymore. I didn't sleep that night either. I stayed up staring at the ceiling, wondering how much of this was still about love and how much of it was about control. Because somewhere along the line, this stopped being about revenge. It became about something darker, balance. I wanted her to feel what I felt. The confusion, the helplessness, the realization that the person you trust most is capable of things you never imagined. In the morning, I made pancakes. She didn't eat. She just watched me move around the kitchen like she didn't recognize the man standing in front of her. When I asked how she was feeling, she said, "It was just an accident. That's all." I nodded. Of course. But the thing about lies is they start to sound different once you know the truth. You can hear the edges. You can hear the tremor underneath. And that's when I knew I didn't need to expose her anymore. She was already exposing herself. Every look, every pause, every sleepless night. Still, I couldn't get that unfinished recording out of my head. He's acting strange. What had she meant by that? Had she recorded it for Clay to hear later? Or was it just another piece of manipulation? Her way of planting seeds in both our heads? I needed answers. And I knew exactly where to find them. That evening, I visited Clay in the hospital. It had been years since I'd seen him look that fragile. He was propped up in bed, arm in a sling, face bruised but smirking. "Didn't expect you to visit," he said. I told him I just wanted to check in. He shrugged, winced. "Guess I'm clumsy." His tone was rehearsed, his smile weak. Then he looked at me and said something that froze me in place. "She's scared of you, you know that?" I played dumb. Scared? Of me? Why would she be? "She thinks you're losing it, man. She told me you've been different. Quiet. Distant. Watching her. She said you keep smiling at weird times." I smiled again, on purpose this time. "You sure you didn't fall because your conscience got too heavy, Clay?" His expression twitched. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Get some rest, big brother." I left before he could say another word. As I walked out of the hospital, I realized something terrifying. They were both afraid of me now, and not because they knew what I was planning, because they didn't. Fear of the unknown is the strongest kind there is. That night, I deleted the recording from her phone and replaced it with one of my own. Just 5 words, whispered softly, like a ghost through the speaker. I already know everything, Tessa. I left the phone on her nightstand and waited. I was already awake when the phone rang. 3:06 a.m. The kind of hour where the world feels thin, like you could fall through it if you breathed too hard. Tessa was still asleep beside me, or pretending to be, her back turned, her breathing too controlled. The ringtone sliced through the quiet like a knife. She flinched. I didn't. It was her phone. I let it ring once, twice, then reached over and answered. I didn't say anything, just listened. There was silence on the other end. Then a man's voice, low and hoarse. He's not who you think he is. Click. I stared at the screen. No caller ID. Just unknown. I put the phone back, gently, like it might explode. Tessa didn't move, but I could feel her eyes open in the dark, watching me from across the mattress. Neither of us spoke. I didn't need to. The silence between us had taken on a language of its own by now, one full of unsaid things, quiet wars, and long, dangerous pauses. That call changed everything. Up until then, I had been in control, carefully pulling strings, setting traps, watching them dance. But now, there was a third player. Someone else who knew something. Someone who'd been watching me. And the worst part? I had no idea who it was. The next morning, Tessa acted like nothing happened. She got dressed, made herself tea, asked if I needed anything from the store. She didn't mention the call. Neither did I. But I noticed the way she double-checked the locks before leaving. The way she paused in the driveway, staring at her own reflection in the car window like she didn't recognize the person looking back. I spent the day trying to trace the call. Burners. Spoofers. Nothing worked. Whoever it was, they'd covered their tracks well. But their message haunted me. He's not who you think he is. Was it meant for her, or me? That night, I went through Tessa's laptop again. Every folder. Every hidden file. I wasn't looking for love notes or photos anymore. I was looking for leverage. Patterns. Mistakes. What I found was something else. There was a folder buried in a system cache, hidden from the desktop. Inside, there were screenshots. Dozens of them. All from my social media. My old accounts. Posts, comments, even deleted messages. Things I barely remembered writing. Old jokes, DMs with coworkers, tagged photos at company events. All cataloged. All time-stamped. She had been watching me. For years. Why? At first, I thought it was obsession. Maybe she'd started doubting me, the same way I doubted her. But then I saw a PDF file labeled Brady Hearing, Private Notes. My heart stopped. Brady was my birth name. I legally changed it when I was 20, after my mom passed, and I severed all ties with my father. No one in my current life, not even Tessa, knew that name. I buried it, along with everything connected to it. I opened the file, and what I read didn't just terrify me. It humiliated me. There were pages of notes about my childhood, pulled from sealed court documents. Reports from a caseworker. Descriptions of my father's abuse. My own statements from when I was just a boy. Private trauma I had never spoken out loud as an adult. Sitting right there on her hard drive. She had known. From the beginning. She knew who I really was. And she married me anyway. I slammed the laptop shut and sat there, shaking. It wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just the cheating, the lying, the gaslighting. It was the realization that I had never actually been in control. Not once. She knew my past. She knew how broken I was. And she chose to use that, not against me, but around me. She built a life on top of it. Smiled through anniversaries. Slept beside me. All while knowing the exact weight of every crack in my foundation. And suddenly, I wasn't sure who I was anymore either. I didn't confront her right away. Not after what I found on that laptop. I needed time to breathe, to think, to understand what it meant. Tessa hadn't just lied. She had known my buried past all along. My real name. My childhood trauma. The scars I worked so hard to erase. And she never said a word. That night, I didn't sleep in the guest room. I went for a walk. It was past midnight. Cold. The air sharp against my lungs in a way that felt honest. Honest in a way that nothing in my life had felt for months. I walked until the streets were empty, until the silence became comforting. And when I came home, I knew what I had to do. I didn't want revenge anymore. I wanted freedom. The next morning, while she was still asleep, I packed a bag. Just the essentials. I wrote her a note. Not dramatic, not angry, just a quiet, final paragraph. You knew who I was and still tried to break me. I let you do it because I forgot how to protect myself. That ends today. Whatever you're running from, it's not my job to fix it anymore. I'm leaving with nothing, and somehow, I still feel like I'm winning. I left the key on the table and walked out the door. There was no explosion, no final confrontation, no revenge plot, just silence. And for the first time in years, I felt peace in it. I moved into a small rental outside of town. 1 bedroom, no TV. I started rebuilding, not just my life, but myself. Therapy twice a week. Reconnected with my cousin Gabe, who I hadn't seen since college. Got a dog. A mutt with bad breath and a tail that wags like it's trying to fly away. I named him Milo. He doesn't care about my past. He just wants me to throw the damn ball. I still think about her sometimes. About Clay. About everything that was taken, yes, but also about everything I nearly gave away. My softness. My empathy. My ability to feel deeply, even when it hurt. And then, a few months later, something happened that made everything click into place. I was at a bookstore, just browsing. A woman next to me reached for the same copy of a Raymond Carver book. We both laughed awkwardly. She was wearing a scarf with little suns stitched into it. Not the kind of fashion you wear if you're trying to impress anyone. Just warm. Her name was Marnie. She liked sad poems and loud thunderstorms. She asked me what I did for a living, and when I said, "Nothing important," she replied, "That sounds peaceful." We talked for an hour without realizing it. There was no tension, no performance. Just 2 people, honest with each other in a quiet corner of a used bookstore. That was the moment I knew I was free. Because for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was being watched. I didn't feel like I had to be someone to be wanted. I was just me. And this time, that was enough.